In my 38 years on this bench, I thought I had seen every form of disrespect, every attempt to manipulate justice. But nothing prepared me for what happened when Police Chief Martinez's daughter walked into my courtroom, believing her last name was a shield against consequences. Sarah Martinez, 26 years old, was charged with reckless driving after nearly hitting 3 children at a school crossing. What made this case extraordinary was the stunning display of entitlement that would unfold in front of 50 shocked witnesses. Sarah entered my courtroom with casual confidence, never having faced real consequences. Designer clothes, perfect hair, and unmistakable entitlement from her father's position as Providence police chief. She moved through the gallery without acknowledging others, phone glowing as she texted during proceedings. The incident occurred during school dismissal. Security cameras captured Sarah's BMW speeding at 45 miles per hour in a 20 miles per hour school zone. Crossing guard Mrs. Rodriguez had her stop sign raised, protecting 3 children crossing when Sarah barreled through. The video shows Mrs. Rodriguez throwing herself between Sarah's car and the children, pushing 2 back while grabbing 7-year-old Emma to safety. Sarah's BMW missed them by less than 3 feet. Sarah sat in her car for 30 seconds, seeing Mrs. Rodriguez helping the shaken children. Instead of checking on them or apologizing, she drove around and left. When police found her using her license plate, her first words were chillingly familiar. Mrs. Rodriguez, a 12-year crossing guard and grandmother, suffered a sprained wrist and nightmares about what could have happened. When I called Sarah's case that morning, she approached my bench with an expression that suggested this was all a tremendous waste of her valuable time. Her attorney, David Brennan, accompanied her with the kind of confidence that comes from handling cases for families with influence. But what struck me immediately was Sarah's complete lack of concern about the gravity of what she had done. I began by reviewing the charges against her. Reckless driving in a school zone, endangering the welfare of children, and failure to yield to a crossing guard. Each charge was serious on its own, but together they painted a picture of someone who had put innocent lives at risk through sheer carelessness and arrogance. Sarah's initial plea was delivered with the same casual indifference she had shown since entering my courtroom. Not guilty, she said, as if the security camera footage was somehow open to interpretation. When I asked if she understood the seriousness of the charges against her, her response revealed everything about her mindset. Sarah told me the incident was blown out of proportion, that she was late for an important meeting, and the crossing guard overreacted. 45 miles per hour wasn't that fast, the children weren't in danger, and it could have been avoided if people paid attention to her approach. I felt my jaw tighten as she spoke. This young woman had nearly killed 3 children and a crossing guard, and her primary concern seemed to be that other people hadn't gotten out of her way quickly enough. When I asked if she had attempted to contact Mrs. Rodriguez to apologize or check on the children she had endangered, Sarah's answer was breathtaking in its callousness. Her attorney had advised against any contact, she explained, because it might be seen as an admission of guilt. But beyond that, she didn't see why she should apologize for what she characterized as an accident that wasn't really her fault anyway. The crossing guard should have moved faster, the children should have been more careful, and the speed limit in that area was unreasonably low for someone with important places to be. That was the moment I realized we were dealing with something far more serious than a simple traffic violation. This was a case about accountability, about respect for human life, and about whether someone's family connections could shield them from facing the consequences of putting innocent people in mortal danger. I decided to play the security camera footage for the entire courtroom. Sarah watched with the detached interest of someone viewing a movie that didn't particularly engage her attention. When the video showed Mrs. Rodriguez risking her own life to save those children, when it captured the terror on 7-year-old Emma's face as she was yanked to safety, when it revealed Sarah sitting calmly in her car afterward before driving away, there wasn't a flicker of remorse or recognition on Sarah's face. The gallery watched in horrified silence. People gasped seeing how close the children came to being struck. A mother cried when she saw Emma's terror, but Sarah remained unmoved, checking her phone as if the footage was merely inconvenient. When the video ended, I asked Sarah directly if she recognized the seriousness of what she had done. Her response left everyone in the courtroom stunned into silence. She acknowledged that she might have been going slightly over the speed limit, but insisted that everyone was overreacting. According to her, this kind of thing happened every day, nobody was actually hurt, and making a big deal out of it was just wasting everyone's time, especially hers. Then came the moment that would transform this routine hearing into something that would be talked about for years. I began explaining to Sarah that her actions had endangered multiple lives, that Mrs. Rodriguez was a hero who had prevented what could have been an unthinkable tragedy, and that her complete lack of remorse was as disturbing as her original reckless behavior. Sarah interrupted me mid-sentence. She pulled her phone from her purse and right there in open court began dialing a number. The courtroom fell into absolute silence as everyone realized what was happening. This young woman was attempting to make a phone call in the middle of her court hearing. I immediately ordered her to put the phone away, but Sarah continued holding it to her ear. She looked directly at me and said she was calling someone who could explain the situation better than she could, someone who would clear up this misunderstanding quickly so everyone could move on with their lives. The audacity was breathtaking. In 38 years on this bench, I had never had a defendant attempt to make a phone call during active proceedings. But what Sarah said next revealed exactly who she thought would rescue her from accountability. She was calling her father, Police Chief Martinez. According to Sarah, he would be able to explain to me why this case was being handled inappropriately, why the charges were excessive, and why someone of her background shouldn't have to endure this kind of public embarrassment over what she still insisted was a minor traffic incident. That was when I made a decision that would become legendary in Providence legal circles. I instructed the bailiff to confiscate Sarah's phone and told her that since she wanted to involve her father in these proceedings, we would do exactly that, but on my terms, not hers. I had the court clerk contact Chief Martinez's office immediately. Within minutes, we had him on the line. But instead of allowing Sarah to speak privately with her father as she had expected, I put the call on speakerphone so that everyone in the courtroom could hear the conversation. The silence was deafening as Chief Martinez's voice filled the courtroom. I explained to him that his daughter was facing serious charges related to endangering children in a school zone, and that she had just attempted to call him in the middle of court proceedings for assistance. I told him that before we continued with sentencing, I wanted to give him an opportunity to address his daughter's behavior and her apparent belief that his position could influence the outcome of her case. What happened next shocked everyone in that courtroom, including me. Chief Martinez's response was immediate, unequivocal, and delivered with the moral clarity of someone who understood that integrity matters more than family loyalty when innocent lives are at stake. He told me that he was aware of the charges against his daughter, that he had seen the security camera footage, and that her actions were inexcusable. More importantly, he said that any attempt on her part to use his position to escape accountability was completely inappropriate and had his explicit disapproval. Chief Martinez's voice carried the weight of 24 years in law enforcement as he continued speaking to the silent courtroom. He said that he had dedicated his career to protecting the innocent, that Mrs. Rodriguez was a hero who deserved respect rather than dismissal, and that his daughter needed to learn that actions have consequences regardless of her last name. Sarah's face went from confident to confused to panicked as she listened to her father's words. This wasn't the rescue she had expected. This was her own father in front of a room full of strangers, refusing to use his influence to shield her from justice. But Chief Martinez wasn't finished. He told me that he supported whatever sentence I deemed appropriate, that his daughter needed to understand the gravity of what she had done, and that she owed Mrs. Rodriguez and those children a sincere apology and whatever restitution was required. The transformation in that courtroom was extraordinary. Sarah, who had entered with such arrogance and entitlement, now stood alone and exposed. Her expected rescue had become a public accountability moment that would follow her for the rest of her life. I sentenced Sarah to 90 days of community service, specifically working with crossing guards and school safety programs, so she could understand firsthand the importance of the work she had so carelessly endangered. She would also pay a substantial fine, attend mandatory driver safety courses, and write formal letters of apology to Mrs. Rodriguez, the 3 children she had endangered, and their families. But perhaps most importantly, Chief Martinez's response that day sent a message that resonated far beyond our courtroom. It demonstrated that true integrity means holding our own family members accountable when they put others at risk, even when doing so is difficult and painful. As Sarah left the courtroom that day, her father's words still echoing in her ears, I reflected on what we had all witnessed. This hadn't just been about traffic violations or even endangering children, though those were serious enough. This had been about the choice between enabling bad behavior and demanding better from the people we love. Chief Martinez chose justice over family comfort, accountability over protection, and the safety of innocent children over his daughter's convenience. In doing so, he demonstrated the kind of moral courage that makes communities safer and justice more meaningful. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do is refuse to shield someone from consequences they need to face. The most powerful lesson comes not from punishment, but from hearing someone you respect tell the world your behavior was wrong. That phone call, which Sarah thought would save her, became the moment she understood that privilege without responsibility is selfishness, and true strength comes from accepting accountability.